ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'm your host, AirsoftAL, and welcome to another book review, except this time it's a fanfiction review.
Excuse me, what?
Yes, I finally decided on which fanfiction I'm going to review, instead of course it being, the Gate, Titanfall one, or the Attack on Titan one called War of the Worlds, which, I'll admit that's a clever name. I'll give you that, Marine. That was actually pretty clever. Or even at the most, I could have reviewed a ton of other fanfictions. I really could have. But I didn't. The main reason I could have reviewed a ton of other fanfictions on Wattpad, or even on fanfiction.net, is because, well, not a lot of them caught my eye. Don't get me wrong, a lot of them did catch my eye, and Marine's own War of the World one, where, of course, the United Nations goes into the Attack on Titan world, or, I could have read the Titanfall Gate fanfiction, where literally the Titanfall factions go to the Gate world. There were a lot of Gate fanfictions, and I'm not gonna lie, each one of them caught my eye, and each one of them really didn't catch my fancy. Except for this one. The Fight We Choose is one done by... Dear God, let me read this guy's name. The author's name of this lovely little one that I actually do like is DFMRCV.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
A tongue twister, don't you think? The guy actually did contact me, and yes, it's a guy. He actually sent me a message. We actually did talk back and forth on fanfiction. Now he has a Discord, and we're actually talking, and it's actually, yeah. And yeah, he was able to actually talk back and forth. We were able to talk back and forth. And we'd be able to actually get a few little bits of behind-the-scenes information, which more behind-the-scenes information will happen once he finishes this thing and a interview happens. Yes, I do plan to do like Ron the Black Cat with his America Another World actual story, and sit the guy down, talk to him, and us actually kind of reconnect and maybe grow a little bit more, maybe a lucrative business deal. Yeah, maybe join the channel.
We've got to have money.
My greedy capitalistic tendencies aside, ladies and gentlemen, what is The Fight We Choose? Well, The Fight We Choose is literally what happens when the Gate from Gate...
Redundant? Much redundant?
Redundancy is redundant, I know, Nostalgia Critic. Opens up in America, which I know a lot of you are already going to ask, which America, though? Is it an alternate history America? Kaiserreich America? Which is either controlled by the Sydneys, or the Oss, or the Pacific States of America, which is the actual real America? And no, not just because of this. Even though, yes, I am a shill for the NCR. Fuck you, the Republic lives forever. Or is it an alternate history America where the Nazis are in charge? The Man in the High Castle America, a Japanese-occupied America, World War I America, World War II America, the Korean War America, Vietnam War America, the America during the 80s, or even post 9/11 America, or even the current America.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Get on with it.
Yes, I'm getting there. Okay, you know what? It's the Vietnam. It's Vietnam America.
I have several questions.
To be exact, 1963. Or at least, yeah, no, 63. More or less, this happened, this lovely little story, and yes, I am going to try and not spoil as much, because I actually want you guys to read this, because it has its own TV Tropes page, which will be linked down below, of course. And not gonna lie, this actually is really cool, and the author himself has actually stated that he's surprised how much traction this has gotten. And while, yes, his Attack on Titan fiction is very popular, and I mean that whole fucking heartedly, is very fucking popular, because, my God, has it actually gained a lot of traction in Ron the Black Cat's Discord server. But the big thing about it is that this one is really well written. Yes, a few spelling errors here and there, just tiny few, but this guy is really good at what he does in his craft. So, ladies and gentlemen, enough of my gabbing, enough backstory, enough explanation. Well, one little thing. The way from my understanding, a lot of the information he got, at least from what I understand, is that his father's cousin is actually 7th Air Cav during the Vietnam War. So it's actually kind of cool to know this, but that little bit of behind the scenes out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive into this and see if The Fight We Choose is worth the read, or if you should pass this up for his much more popular Attack on Titan fiction. Shall we? So the story starts off, of course, with Chapter 1 being set in Dallas in '63, where Lee Harvey Oswald is setting up his rifle to assassinate JFK. Excuse me, fucking what?
I don't like where this is going.
Oh dear, we are going here. For those of you who don't know, during the 1960s, to be exact, 1963, JFK, the youngest serving president in U.S. history, was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald, who, honestly, that is a can of worms I'm not going to get into, but it sets this up in Dallas, Texas, where this assassination took place. And already I'm feeling very uncomfortable talking about this, so let's just go ahead and get to why we're here. So, essentially what happens is that while he's setting up to essentially JFK,
Of course!
something happens. A gate appears, and already we switch perspectives to a nice little diner in Georgia, where we are at a mining town. And while a lot of you may ask if mining is still happening in the US, yes, mining is still happening. However, back in the 60s, mining was actually a legitimate profession, and was, technically still is, a dangerous profession. But back in the 60s, it definitely was a dangerous profession. Especially if you were in England, or, correction, if it was the 80s and you were in England, you were Margaret Thatcher. Moving on. More or less, the whole story kind of revolves around this one protagonist, this one kid from Georgia who is going in the army, who's joining the army. And while, yes, his mother is very much so, from my understanding, not against it, what have you, there is a World War II veteran there who actually is against him joining the army, who knew his dad very well and is a family friend. Now, I can speak from experience when I say that my father, my family is a service family, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this now. My father served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. My grandpa served in Vietnam from '63 to '69. My great-grandfather served the entirety of the Korean War in the Navy, and even the early parts of the Vietnam War, retired a Master Chief Petty Officer. And then, of course, my great-great-grandfather served in World War II and Korea, and the early parts of Vietnam until he finally retired. Basically, I have a long service family that goes all the way back to, from my understanding, goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. So my family is a long service family, and a lot of them are just all over the goddamn place in terms of the service. But more or less, I can attest to this because I've had a lot of family friends actually. When I was wanting to sign up and serve, they actually tried to stop me. They even tried to dissuade me by telling me stories of their experiences in the military. But more or less, I still wanted to join up, and sadly, as you can tell, I couldn't join up because of being autistic. Even the fucking Coast Guard wouldn't take me. I'm not joking on that. But, moving on. Basically, the family friend starts telling our main protagonist that, well, one of many main protagonists, that, you know, don't join up. Don't serve your country, more or less. But the kid wants to join up and serve his country. And I completely understand this, because during the 1960s, while, yes, there was a cultural divide on the military itself, there were a lot of people, a lot of patriots who still wanted to join up and serve their country, fight the communist, fight the commie threat.
Actually, the issue at stake is patriotism. You must return to your world and put an end to the commies. All it takes are a few good men.
And I completely agree with that. I mean, if you want to serve your country, go ahead and serve your country. That's your decision, and I fully support your decision. If you don't want to serve your country, don't serve your country. Just don't be fucking bitching and bawling about it, you jackass. So, as this is happening in a little family diner, the news plays and starts talking about what the hell's going on in Dallas. And here's a fun little thing about Dallas. Texas is besides Tennessee, of course, is the highest gun per capita state. Because it's fucking Texas. And here's the thing, folks. During the 1960s, gun ownership in Texas was high because of the Cold War, because of the fear, and I'm not joking on this. This is something I actually heard from an old Texan. There were a lot more guns in Texas than people actually think there were because of the fear of the communists coming through Mexico.
They opened up the door down here. The whole Cuban and Nicaraguan armies come walking right through. Roll right up here through the Great Plains.
As Cuba. And yes, that was a legitimate fucking fear. My God, do I love Texas. So here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. As this is happening, and I'm not joking on this, this is where it gets fun. As this is happening, Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin, now turns literally is in his little tower, sniping at these Roman motherfuckers. These little bastards, literally sniping at them with his Carcano. And when he ran out of ammo, he basically had a pistol, a little revolver, more or less. Because, of course, Texas, revolver, Colt single action armies, double action, Smith & Wessons, whatever. It doesn't matter. Revolver's a revolver. Wheel gat's a wheel gat. Moving on, though. So, more or less, he sees a black woman and a black child being taken, of course, by some Romans. And here's a nice little fun fact. Even during the Roman Empire, there weren't a lot of colored people, and most of them were in fact slaves, and were actually prized pretty fucking high because of the skin color, and were actually considered exotic. So, I'm gonna let your imaginations go wild with what the hell's gonna happen to these two. Well, what happened if our assassin, now turned hero, didn't jump in? Literally gunning down the Romans, the legionaries, because Aue to the Kaiser, you suck. Gun versus spear. What the fuck do you think's gonna happen? Literally guns him down, and the two go free. And actually feeling pretty good for himself, gets fucking shanked.
Of course!
Lee Harvey Oswald, ladies and gentlemen, assassin now turned hero. Or unsung hero, depending on whether or not the story ever gets out about his actions. And then, of course, there's probably going to be conspiracy theories popping up asking why the hell he was there, how he was there, what he was doing with the weapons, etc., etc., etc. It was the 60s. There were conspiracy theories out the wazoo. Until the 80s came around. Then there were more conspiracies. And then the 90s, and then nowadays, etc., etc., etc. Moving on. So, this is all going on. The President of the United States, our good boy JFK, John Francis Kennedy, is literally trying to understand what in the hell is going on. And trying to wonder where the fuck the military is. And much like the Gate anime itself, except this time USA, 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 we kicked their legionary ass right back across the gate. If not outright wipe them the hell out. And then things kind of slow down a bit. We then follow the characters as they digest what happened in Dallas. The Battle of Dallas, yes, I'm calling it that. Fuck you, it's actually a really good name, and actually would be something the papers would probably play it as. Because, of course, the media is still the media. No matter what area you're in. Literally is trying to understand what the hell's going on. Even talks to the Soviets. And this is something I really do love about the author here. We actually get some politics in this. Not boring politics, actually exciting politics of the 60s. Because the 60s was when politics were at their height. In terms of backdoor deals, in terms of illegal shit going on, fucking overthrowing third world dictators and implanting their own third world dictators. The 60s was wild, especially for Africa. I ain't joking on that. Africa was Africa was a testing ground for a lot of weapons. I'm not joking on that. But more or less, here's what's going on. JFK and of course Nikita is talking, more or less. They're talking about the gate and what exactly they're going to do with it. And while, yes, imperialism, capitalism, communism, blah, 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 is going on, here's what's going on in Vietnam. Because, yes, the Vietnam War is happening technically. While the U.S. has not committed to this point, I believe, I might have to research that a little bit. I might have to re-look back at my history books. JFK actually says this. We will pull out of Vietnam, we will allow elections if you back them up.
Bullshit! Bullshit!
This is where the Soviet Union is actually a lot different than a lot of people might want to think. Because the author brings up a really actual legitimate thing that happened in the 1960s. The Soviets and the Chinese do not like each other at all, because they have two different versions of communism, from my understanding. However, the Chinese really don't like the Soviets because the Soviets still control land that technically they lost and rightfully belongs to the Soviets. which would result in 1969 a actual open conflict. Not a war, mind you, a open conflict between the Chinese and the Soviets. And while the Soviets actually were kicking ass against the Chinese would claim they were winning against the Soviets. However, numbers would dictate otherwise. And if you want to go research that, do go research that, because the Sino-Soviet border conflict is a fascinating subject to read into. And is actually open for alternate history stories. I'm not lying. Like, the Soviets against the Chinese. Come on. Just fucking do it. Moving on. So, yeah. The Soviets don't like the Chinese don't like the Soviets, and knowing that Vietnam definitely doesn't like the Chinese already is opening up a lot of possibilities for the Soviets, because if Vietnam likes the Soviet Union over the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, then already the Soviets have an ally against the CCP. And if this author does continue on the path I think he's going on, then we could, in 69, if it does reach the 69, see the possibility of the Vietnamese and the Soviets banding together and actually taking on the Chinese. And while, yes, everyone will say, oh, you know, that's... whatever, more or less. Just moving on. Back to the story. So, yes, they broker a deal. U.S. will pull out of Vietnam if the Soviets support a fair election. And they do. And here's the nice little thing. The Soviet Union, in this story, doesn't exactly know what to do with the gate. They do send spies, yes, spoilers, but then again, it's the Cold War. Everyone was sending spies everywhere. Be it South America, Mexico, Cuba, wherever. There were spies fucking everywhere. Even in Japan, there were spies. I'm not joking on that. Moving on. More or less, the Soviet Union is still trying to figure out what to do with the gate. What are they going to do with the gate? Nothing. Okay, I say nothing, but in reality, they're wanting to now try and open their own gate. And this can be either through the occult, this could be through science.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
Or anything else entirely. It depends whether or not they actually go through with this. And like I said, this story is actually really good, and we're still on chapter 1. And by the way, just fair fucking warning, these chapters are as long, if not as long as the Bible. That's pretty cool. That the author has put all this effort into each one of these chapters, and I fucking love it. And I'm going to abridge everything, because I want you guys to read this. I'm only going to put some pinpoints into this, but I'm just going to abridge as much as possible. So, moving on, or, moving the story along, more or less, we then go to the military operations. And let me tell you now, folks, it gets good. Because military operations, they send in the fucking Rangers. They send in the Marines. They send in Air Cav. They send in all of them. And by God, I love it. Oh, God help me, I love it. So, yeah. It gets really good. Like, no joke. It gets really, really fucking good. Because I just can't help it. I really can't. Because the story keeps going on, and we finally get, of course, to... And the best part about it is that the Marines themselves... You know what? I'm not dressed right for this. I'll be right back. That's a lot better. So, here's a little quick recap of what's going on with the actual operations. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a little quick recap. Legions get their ass kicked and completely obliterated by our cannons and artillery, anti-aircraft, all that good jazz, and of course, lovely weapons of freedom. Marines, of course, find the elf village early on, and they wound the dragon with the Pattons, because of course the Patton tanks are really good at what they do. Screw you to anyone who says Patton tanks ain't that great. There's a reason the Japanese are still using them. Updated versions, yes, but they're still fucking using them. Of course, it gets better from there. They find Italica. Yes, they find Italica, and more or less, fucking fly to Italica. And it only gets better from there. It really does, because they meet with the little girl, and of course, they find out about all these beast girls and demi-humans and all this good jazz. And during the entire story, there's this whole thing about perviness and all this other stuff, but the dark one of it, and actual real-world law of it, is that they bring up a lot of the discriminatory laws during the 60s that outlawed interracial marriage. And I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't great in U.S. history. And I'm happy a lot of those laws, if not all those laws, were completely and utterly removed. Voted out, written out, and completely gone. And before anyone starts going off in the comments section, if the laws were still around, and if America was truly racist, why are we not stopping people from being interracial couples? The story continues on as somewhat normal, however, each one of the set pieces are really, really good. Especially the fact that Rangers lead the way. And I'm not joking on this, when the Brigards actually do attack Italica, they face off against only a couple Rangers. And I only say a couple because I don't know the exact numbers. But it's only a couple of Rangers. And Rangers hold the line. And they held the line, not really getting any casualties. And when the air cav came, oh buddy, when the air cav came, well, let's just say they bring the freedom. Italica now becomes a protectorate, more or less, of the United States of America, and the little princess even, you know, what have you. Either way, though, Princess Pina, of course, is there, yes, and she does actually help with the fighting. And, of course, there's a lovely little banter, of course, during the fight when she's trying to ask the interpreter what the hell's going on. The interpreter actually tells her to shut the hell up because we're currently fighting.
You need to shut the fuck up!
After the Battle of Italica, we actually do, once again, get a little bit more politics. But what I do love about it is that it just keeps going. The world building of this is really great, and the war itself shows that Cold War era tactics and doctrine. Because unlike modern doctrine, where one must fire their rifle on semi-automatic to conserve ammunition, during the Vietnam War, well, primarily during the 60s and 80s, full auto was very much encouraged when using the M16. And yeah, no, it very much so was encouraged. So, while yes, the M14 does make an appearance in this, and yes, we will talk about the M14 in general, the M16 and its depiction of how the doctrine is used with the M16 rifle is actually accurate, and I am very impressed by it. I really am, because again, full auto during the 60s. Not really a lot of, semi-auto. Moving on. The CIA does make an appearance that actually does make sense, because, again, it's the CIA during the 1960s. The CIA during the 1960s was kind of having fun. Like, I'm not joking. Look up all the CIA operations that happened during the 1960s that were actually declassified. There was a lot of shady shit that happened during the 1960s. Especially during the Vietnam War. Moving on. So after Italica, of course, they then move operations to the capital, where they do set up shop. And the entire story follows not only a three-part structure, or at least three paths. We follow not only, of course, Pina Colada, we also follow, of course, the Ranger, who is now acting as a spy. We also follow Green Berets. We also follow, well, what am I saying? Three paths. We follow a lot of characters here. We follow Green Berets. We follow 7th Air Cav. We follow the news, even. We follow the President. A lot of different characters we follow, and each one of them is great, including the news segments. The news segments made me feel like I was watching Starship Troopers, or even the Batman Dark Knight Returns comic by Alan Moore, or even the cartoon series, I guess I could say, because there were a series of movies about the Dark Knight Returns, and we actually did follow the fucker right there. Again, absolutely loved it because it made me feel like I was watching Starship Troopers, I was reading Alan Moore's comic, or even watching the cartoon. Or the movie, more or less, of Dark Knight Returns. Again, anytime media is executed perfectly is where I love it. And the media, the author has actually done accurately to what the media was like during the Vietnam War, or even during the 1960s, because I could see it being read as a sort of calm, collected type deal, or even sort of just that whole calm atmosphere. Again, if you read it yourself and you know what I'm talking about, then please let me know in the comment section down below if you know the person I'm thinking of who could actually be narrating this. Because it's not only, of course, CBS News, it's also other war correspondents, other news agencies who are covering this conflict and even covering the different things. Especially the debates. Well, not really debates, I guess you could say just some debates in general, because the issue does come up, especially because it's the 1960s and the civil rights movement happening. Especially the civil rights movement happening. Because here's the thing, the question of the demi-humans actually does come up, and whether or not they're actually human, they should deserve citizenship, and the president is pushing for this. Because not a lot of people know this, or at least want to admit it, but JFK was doing a lot of great progressive stuff to not only, of course, remove Jim Crow laws, not only, of course, to remove segregation, but actually give equal rights to all minorities. That's why I love JFK. JFK was a go-getter. He is a World War II veteran, even. Hell, he served in the Pacific as a torpedo boat. In a torpedo boat. He's Navy. And my great-grandfather loved the guy because he was Navy. And even joked saying, ha, we finally got a Navy man in office. But later on. More later. More or less, the conflict itself still continues. And yes, we do get a lot of spy stuff. But when JFK actually does come over to the side of the gate to actually start shaking hands, actually does talk with these people, and even meets all these people, he then comes to one section that I absolutely love. We didn't get introduced to magic by the CIA.
Bad touch! Bad touch! Stranger danger!
No, 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 no.
Of course, what I gotta love about this is that it's the CIA. And of course, when they show up all these characters, it's really great to see how the CIA agent, which, let's face it, I'm not even going to name because it's a generic name that the CIA always fucking uses as a cover to not even use their real fucking names. And I should know, I mean, my name isn't John Smith for nothing. So, what's going on exactly with this one particular entry? Well, more or less, he's showing off to the president, JFK, exactly what's happening with it. You know, they're showing off all this stuff, and they're showing off all these different magic users. We get to see, of course, the harpy, or, you know, whatever, basically the winged the winged girl from the anime. We then, of course, get to see Lalele, we get to see Tuca, we get to see, basically, you know, all this stuff with the magics and things, and to say that JFK is a little bit stunned to hear the actual age of Tuca, it's kind of hilarious and irritating at the same time, because, yeah, Tolkien was right on the elves, and, yeah. But, then again, he starts to realize something when Lele says her name, and Lele is, well, a little bit underage to be doing the CIA's dirty work, and even, rightly so, mind you, pokes at the agent there, and literally tells him, I will not have children be agents. I'm abridging this, mind you, but JFK, he's a good guy. Any other president would probably just go ahead and be all on this. Freaking magical kids as operatives, arming them with the best, like, say, double-stack 1911s with suppressors on the ends, some highly advanced secret technologies, whole-on covert operative strike teams, armed with the latest and best in weapons technology, sending them in behind enemy lines to scope out and assassinate any and all high-value targets of the United States that are considered a threat, foreign or domestic. But we would never do that. We're the CIA. You can trust us.
I guarantee it. Would I lie?
Of course, the president shoots that down faster than, well, the failure that was Bay of Pigs. Not our brightest hour.
Of course!
Of course, as all this is going on, there is another B plot with, of course, with the Rangers literally being in the red light district, being set up, having a covert operation going on, with their call sign literally being, and I may be messing this up because I just read this thing and I'm just now filming afterwards, Trojan and Stalker.
Get out of here, Stalker.
No, not that Stalker. These call signs are actually pretty accurate to the Vietnam era. A lot of what we have nowadays in terms of actual call signs and, you know, things like that, you can thank the Vietnam War for, because that was developed a lot in the Vietnam War. A lot of the call signs, a lot of what we have nowadays was developed in the Vietnam War with NATO forces, because it wasn't just America in the conflict, it was also Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Yes, Japan was in the conflict. Korea was definitely in the conflict. So a lot of NATO call signs, or a lot of the NATO alphabet that we use nowadays was developed in the Vietnam War. So I definitely do like how this was all definitely incorporated. One of those little things I absolutely fucking love. But the best part about this is their little mascot, Charlotte. Charlotte is, oh my god, she's adorable. She must be protected at all costs. She is a good girl. You're probably wondering why I'm loving this. Okay, so here's the thing. The two of the Rangers are actually walking down the streets of Italica after a little bit of hanky-panky happened. Not the kind of hanky-panky. I'm talking about the kind of hanky-panky that is CIA-related hanky-panky, as in offing an official. I'm not going to say who exactly, but I will say it is important, and I'm not going to spoil it. I want you to read this yourself. Link down below. Moving on. They find a little slave girl, this little dog demi-human, and when they say dog, when the author said dog, my mind went to two variants. Number one, Labrador. Number two, German Shepherd. One of the two. I don't care. I will happily wait for him to decide what this girl is, but either way, those two right there, those two are great. Moving on. This little girl is literally adopted by the main character, or at least the unit as a whole. And the way I can see this, I don't know if he intended this or not, but this reminds me of Vorchik, or basically the bear. The bear who is now the symbol of the Polish artillery unit. The bear who literally was a soldier in World War II, who was literally adopted and literally loved cigarettes, loved beer, was a Slav bear, literally helped carry artillery shells to the cannons, literally helped his fellow comrades, and sadly died in captivity instead of being a fucking war hero, actually being recognized. Years later, he is recognized and is given the veteran status. Vorchek is, by God, something you should research into, and I'm going to tell you now, you're going to cry. I cried. Thank you, Vorchek, for your service to the Polish motherland. Swear to God, if that's what they're going to do with her, with Charlotte, because Charlotte is a good girl. She already saved their butts from a threat that I'm not going to spoil here. I want you to go read this damn book. I want you to fucking read this thing. Dead fucking serious. Go fucking read this thing. But Charlotte is literally seen as a daughter for the main character, who I'm going to go ahead and spoil a little bit for, is having some psychological troubles. Not only because of PTSD and forming PTSD, which, by the way, once again, Vietnam, the largest fucking case of PTSD ever. My own grandpa had PTSD, but actually handled it pretty well, but never really talked about what he saw in the war, only talked about some of the jobs he did in the war, or what it was like before and after the conflict for him. But either way, though, this guy is literally suffering PTSD. And I don't blame him. The character is literally 18 years old, fresh out of fucking boot, fresh out of ranger school, just sent straight into combat. Not even prepared. It's a great, fascinating read. It really is. So Charlotte actually is a good girl. And again, the adopted daughter of the main character, and even the unit itself. I would not be surprised if down the line she actually does want to be like her father, or at least the adopted father, or be like the unit, wants to sign up for the army, wants to actually be a ranger, and becomes the mascot of that ranger unit, and saves her a damn spot to get her in and be a ranger. I can see it now. Her in the uniform of the in literally, because this is set in the 60s, I can see her growing up and literally it be the 80s. Her signing up, her being literally a demi-human in an all demi-human ranger unit, or it being the first ranger unit that ever allowed demi-humans to sign up and be a ranger. Literally her out there with an M16, just doing her father proud, doing her uncles proud, just fucking hoorah! can dream, damn it. I can dream. And the author himself, we better see a continuation of this, because you have set up an amazing world. You've set up such a great thing, and swear to God, Hardy, you do anything to hurt good girl Charlotte, I will do everything in my power to find you, hunt you down, and kill you!
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Because until good girl Charlotte is old enough to sign up and join up and do her service, nobody should hurt that girl.
You damn straight!
Sorry, I had a bit of a psychotic breakdown. Back to the actual story itself. So during the whole time, of course, the red light district is evacuated because there is a huge operation underway. Not only that, but there are guerrilla fighters in the mountains, literally being fought. There is misinformation campaigns happening. All of this culminating into essentially a 1984, literally just... Okay, so for those of you, before I even continue, just a small little bit of what I mean by 1984. There is a constant conflict in 1984 that is always switching between who Oceania is fighting, or at least who Big Brother is fighting, and who their allies are. It's literally that right now. We're literally building it up to that. We're building up to that sort of thing, where the new head of state, who the CIA is literally manipulating, controlling, literally just whispering into the ear of this person, is telling them that they are winning the war, when in reality they are not winning the war, they are losing the war. It's just building up. It's so good. And then the UN gets involved.
I couldn't make this shit up. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. I'm sad that I lack the talent to make this shit up.
Ah, the UN, bunch of mamby-pamby pencil pushers and bureaucrats. Oh wait, this is the UN during the 60s. Bunch of mamby-pamby pencil pushers and bureaucrats who actually had some balls. Now, of course, the UN has to get involved. Thankfully enough, however, it's Switzerland who actually says it, because Switzerland is a armed neutral country and definitely enforces their neutrality via armed conflict. Not joking on that, they literally shot down both American and German planes during World War II that came very damn close into their airspace. Go look it up. It's actually pretty fun. Goddamn Switzerland, you scary. It's either Switzerland or Sweden, but either way though. Basically one of the neutral countries says, hey, just why not let our observers come over there? So they allow some UN troops to come over, and yes, this is where it gets kind of fun. For those of you who are probably sounding off in the comments section talking about this, yes, this is the chapter that literally talks about a certain rifle and its counterpart. Now, during the whole story itself, during the later half of the story itself, there is a huge buildup when the UN finally comes over, talking about the M14 and the FNFAL, and the real-life drama behind it is pretty fucking hilarious and actually really disturbing at the same time. Go watch Ian from Forgotten Weapons on the subject, because again, he covers this better than we ever could, and if we ever tried to in paper or even online form, we'd be basically covering a Bible's length worth of information, because that's exactly what this is. It's a Bible's length worth of information of the sabotage, the politics behind it, the drama behind the adoption of the M14 versus the FNFAL, and how the FNFAL came to be. But more or less, what I actually do love is that during the guerrilla campaign, the actual inaccuracy of the M14, as much as I do love the weapon, and don't get me wrong, I do, does come to light during a massive push by the guerrilla forces, resulting in some casualties, not only on the American side, but also on the Allied side as well, as a few Allied forces, who I'm not going to say who, because again I want you to read this, do get hurt and do get injured. And let's just say Secretary of Defense is not happy.
Fool me once, I'm mad. Fool me twice, how could you? Fool me 3 times, you're officially that guy, okay? You know the one. You go to the bar, he's like, this suit is officially is a Giorgio Armani. Ask my dad knows, and fuck you! I ain't having that shit!
The absolute backlash of this well, the result of the conflict itself, especially the big battle, results in, of course, the Secretary of Defense coming all the way down to the DoD and literally plopping on their desk the results of the M14 in combat against swords and sticks, which resulted in casualties and the actual overall combat effectiveness of the weapon itself. And as a result, literally telling them, look, we are abandoning the M14, we are going to adopt the M16, and you don't have a fucking dog in the hunt. And again, they even bring up some really good points about the weapon versus the M16. While yes, the weapon itself is, again, does have its strengths, when compared to the M16, no, there is no comparing it to the M16. The M16 literally outperforms this thing in every way possible. While, yes, denying the 308 power that it comes with it as well as the range, the M16 in 5.56.223 is a lot better in the conflict, and even brings up the fact of what the hell would have happened if this was in Vietnam. If we had actually went into full conflict in Vietnam, if we literally committed to Vietnam with the M14 rifle. Again, I love the author for doing this. I fucking love this. Then we come to the big payoff. And I'm not going to say how big the payoff is, but I'm going to say it does revolve around the Warrior Bunny Queen. And dear God, the payoff is great. It is so good because there is a brain, there is a... all I'm going to say is that it culminates into not only the main character, this 18-year-old ranger, literally realizing he has feelings for this girl and wants to fucking marry this girl, marry this woman, this deposed queen, but also wants to get her out of there, wants her to be the mother to Charlotte, wants all this to go on, literally just all this combination, all the build-up, everything is culminated to this one epic moment, where literally the new leader of this, and yes, you can go ahead, I'm going to spoil a little bit of it for you, fucking Pina's brother is now the new emperor and has basically raised a massive army and has made the Bunny Queen literally his advisor, and then there's this thing about her being brainwashed, and then all this other stuff, and literally about to humiliate her on stage, all this, everything else, literally thinks that she loves him, tries to stab the motherfucker, and then at the end of it, and at the end of this whole drama, literally has a 45 ACP 1911 pointed at him. My God, just builds up. It just builds the fuck up. And of course there were Green Berets who are in there. There's internal conflict within the prince's army. Little freaking... It is an amazing build up to this amazing climax. The author has built up everything to fall into place. And I cannot wait for Chapter 10 to come out. I was going to save this for when Chapter 10 finally came, and we were going to get the resolution to this huge build-up to the United States forces finally coming into this literally pseudo-ramen empire, kicking their butts, dropping Agent Orange on them, to literally the main character, this ranger, finally having the Emperor at gunpoint, ready to shoot him, and ready to save the girl he loves and take her to this little dog demi-human, little hybrid, to be the mother. Again, I want you folks to go down to the comment section and read this. It is really good. I really do wish this author would continue with the story itself, even after, because he has confirmed that he's going to do it for 12 chapters. So if you guys want to, link down below. Go read the story. Go read the story. Just go, okay? Just fucking go.
Just take all my money. Oh, not this soon, not this soon.
Anyway, if you guys like this story of The Fight We Choose, consider subscribing, because I will be reviewing chapters 10, 11, and 12 when they respectively release. And if you guys want to help support the channel and what we do, please consider donating to our PayPal down below. And if you have stories you would like me to check out, or even alternate history or other media, please let me know in the comment section down below. And knowing YouTube, they probably demonetize this because it involves war, guns, and otherwise. So, like I said, you guys donating to the PayPal helps support the channel. And to the author himself, I love this. I love the book. Continue doing what you're doing, dude, and I hope for a continuation story where we follow the little girl and maybe even more in the future. Because, again, you've opened the floodgates of possibilities, my dude. Let's just see what you got. Anyway, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been AirsoftAL, the common man's airsofter who reads amazing books to share with you. And who knows, after Chapter 12 releases of this, I might do an interview with the author. Let me know if you want that to happen. And I will see you lovely folks in the next video. Till next time.